It's my pleasure to invite the chief guest, Vice Admiral Deshpande, to do the various address.
Mrs. Ambika Sharma, the Director General of Ficci, the esteemed guests here on the dais, members from the industry, the diplomatic corps, and our friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. You know, a lot of people keep telling me that the Indian Navy is on the cusp of taking a technological leap. And when I meet people, be it in forums like this or maybe on a one-on-one, I keep reminding them that it is not that we are on the cusp of taking a technological leap. We have actually taken this leap quite some time back. When I mean have taken this leap, and the only sort of an indicator for anybody to see is that when you look at the platforms that have been inducted over the years, there has been a quantum jump. There has been major changes in terms of what is the technology that is available on all the systems which are governing the functioning of the ship. So therefore, when Ficci approached us to support this seminar, I thought it was very apt in terms of the content, and very apt from the point of view of realizing the Navy's future build plans that we have through these type of interactive sessions. I'm sure that the seminar would generate a lot of interest, and there would be a lot of takeaways for all the stakeholders concerned at the end of the seminar. Just to amplify what I just said about how technology has changed our platforms, way back when I joined in 1979, which was the INS Mysore, which was the destroyer, which was the cruiser at that point in time with Delhi and also our aircraft carrier Vikrant. You know, it used to take us about good 6 to 8 hours of notice for us to actually move any platform. Also, when you look at what the performance of these were whilst we were at sea, you had your radars, you had your sensors, which gave you a picture of things, but the picture was very limited. Accuracies were, there were imponderables in the accuracies that came through. The weapon systems, which were primarily guns, subsequently we moved across to a certain amount of missiles where technologies were in a very nascent stage, at least for what the Indian Navy had at that point in time. Platform management systems probably didn't exist. It was all manual controls. And when you look at this as the broad picture and then come across to what is the latest commissioned destroyer of the Indian Navy, INS Chennai, which just a few months back, there's a world of difference. And that world of difference is in probably all spheres of operation that the ship is supposed to function. You have absolutely state-of-art weapon systems, state-of-art platform management, bridge management, damage control, all sorts of things. In fact, today, the command and control functions that these type of ships have, you have the capability to offload payloads from other ships in the vicinity from the command and control platform. That's the type of technology which we are looking at. And therefore, this transformation becomes very important for us because we have a huge game plan, a huge perspective in what we need to do. And this has been documented through various documentations over the period of the last 5 to 8 years, wherein our plans have been put on paper so that continuity in our thinking processes, and as very aptly put across by that slide by Commodore Samadar, that the Navy is not built over a period. It takes probably a century and 50 years of actual on task. That is exactly what we have in mind. So we have a maritime perspective plan and a LTI PP, as we call it, is a long-term plan for what are the platform inductions that we have in mind. And we talk about a Navy of 170, 180 ships. We talk about aircrafts, which are about 400 in numbers. But the bottom line here is that it is not the numbers that matter. It is the punch that these numbers have. And therefore, technology comes in and becomes very, very important in what we have in our mind in the platforms that we want to induct. Similarly, we have an indigenization plan, wherein we have a lot of involvement with the industry, where we're looking at participation from the industry in a very, very big way. We have identified areas where indigenization becomes critical. And the primary motive behind this is to make sure that self-reliance becomes an absolute cornerstone in the processes that we follow. We also, along with the DRDO, have a science and technology roadmap. And in the science and technology roadmap, what we have sort of highlighted and brought out to fore is the type of technologies that we need to get. You had a rough look at what are the type of technologies, superconductivity, you've got nanotechnologies, you have new materials which would be giving us savings in weight and giving us more strengths, reducing weights of ships, and a host of other such things, which we would look at imbibing. We're trying to look at adventing this into the system. And actually, if I may not be very parochial in what I'm saying, I would say today that the Indian Navy is probably, let alone the defense forces, but also with industry, it's probably the only sphere, or only, if I can use the word, as a business entity, where technology advents are maximized. Because when you see the platform, it consists of just about everything. And we are willing to take the chance of imbibing technologies, going through the processes of learning before we stabilize on the technology for future use. We've done that on very many platforms. We have not insisted that we would like to have an absolutely proven technology coming in. We do believe that there are certain amount of experimentations because the R&D sector today in the country is not as strong as we would have liked the sector to be before we do any induction plans. So these are some of the things that we are looking at it. And fortunately for us, in all these processes that we are looking at, all our thoughts, all our plans sort of fall into the entire overall ambit of the Make in India policy which the government has. And that helps us to make very, very bold decisions, get across to collaborative approaches, so that at the end of the day, the platform gets what is there today, the best in the market, not necessarily in country, but even looking elsewhere. If you look at the Navy, primarily 3 dimensions, be it shipbuilding, be it aviation, and be it underwater. On the shipbuilding, primarily looking at it in a very, very easy way is the float, the move, float, and fight functions. In the float functions, we have a fair amount of maturity in our design capabilities in the organizations that we have. We went in from very original block constructions. So we have graduated from that. We are now getting into integrated constructions where a fair amount of outfittings happened prior to actual assembly of blocks. We have done a fair amount in terms of materials. We have in country today warship building steels available. Started off slowly, but today all our projects have, and the industry today has the capability to produce the steels to the requirements that we project. On the move functions, we are not where we would have liked to be. We're probably 2 or 3 steps short. And this, I would say, more so on propulsion aspects, because on the propulsion aspects, other than the manufacture, I think we have progressed. And the progress in the areas of integration of systems is where a huge amount of progress has been made indigenously. And we are in a position to today say that be it platform management systems or integrating things, we have the capability to do all these integration functions in-house. The fight function is an area of concern. And when I say an area of concern, I mean we have had our fair amount of progress. If you look at BrahMos, we have a fair amount of progress in the torpedo field if you look at Varunastra. But there is still a long way to go. And this is the area where we would request very major participation from the industry in trying to get this indigenous component to the levels of what we would like it to happen. What is important in all these functions and in all the plans that we have is each is woven by a commonality thread, and that commonality thread is transformation. We believe that transformation has to happen from one platform to the other, transformation for the better. And this transformation gets guided by the technology that is available in the country and the technology that we have in mind, which we need to get into. And as I said, we're willing to take the chance of getting in technologies and be an experimental platform so that for the future platforms, they become proven. To give you just a very small overview of what is in store on the shipbuilding front, we have lots of projects on the anvil. We have a new generation destroyers coming up. We have new generation corvettes coming up. We have missile vessels coming up. We have fleet support ships coming up. We have the IAC-2, which is right now, which would probably be the prima donna project of the Navy once we get our clearances of going through with the project. And a host of other vessels which will actually transform this Navy to get into absolute blue water capability. Similarly, on the aviation front, lots and lots of primary research has happened in terms of avionics, in terms of the surveillance systems, the data links between aircraft to aircraft and aircraft to ships, the hydraulics, which are controlling the avionics. And if you have to say that there is success story, yes. Indigenously, we have helicopters which have been produced. Indigenously, we have fighter aircrafts which have been produced. It's a work in progress. And I'm sure as time goes by, we would probably achieve what we want. On the submarine front, you're all aware that we are in the midst of building the Scorpion submarines in Mazagon docks. The first one should be out and ready and commissioned very shortly. We also have programs for building of more conventional submarines. We have a very, very ambitious plan for our strategic submarines. We have special operating vessels on the anvil, which would also fall into place soon. We have a DSRV project also, which is will fructify in 2018. So here again, lots and lots of things, which would actually gel into our overall game plans. So all in all, if you look at these three dimensions and you look at how we plan to progress, I'm sure that you'll all agree with me that self-reliance, indigenization, and collaborative approaches become cornerstones and essentials insofar as we are concerned. I'm sure that lots of work will happen on these fronts. We will get the support from the industry. We'll get the support from the researchers, the DRDOs, and all the government organizations. And when these handshakes take place with all these stakeholders, I'm sure the handshake will also come from the government in terms of very, very proactive policies, policies which will help business rules, ease the business rules, and make sure that as time goes by, India becomes a defense manufacturing hub. That should be the actual game plan. And some of these policies are already in place. You're all aware of what the foreign direct investment changes which have taken place. We've got a strategic partnership model that we are looking at, which will get discussed, and probably the policy should actually, pen to paper should happen on this policy in the very short term. As Commodore Samadar has brought out, there's a lots of discussions which will come in through the various seminars and the sessions which are there as a part of this, the complete seminar which is being planned. And I'm sure it will evict a lot of interest, a lot of discussions, a lot of debate. And at the end of the day, there will be lots of takeaways for all of us so that we can look at making this complete thing a success for us. And most importantly, the interactions which happen between all of us, there would be takeaways for all of us so that we could help each other in making sure that the plans that the Navy has for the future fructify. So I wish the seminar the best, all the very best, lots of discussions, lots of debates, and I'm sure that there would be interesting times ahead through all these discussions. So thank you very much. Jai Hind,